My name's Heather Kirk-Ballard. I'm with the LSU Ag Center, and I'm here this morning with Dennis Ray, and we are conducting our HortLegends interview. We'll get started with our first question.
Right.
What is your horticultural specialization, and what are the primary positions you have held?
Well, my specializations are genetics and plant breeding. My PhD is in genetics, and genetics has always been my emphasis. I'm a trained plant breeder because I think today, not always historically, but today, we make our genetic, plant breeding is just applied genetics. And so that's why I do that. The second part of the question, primary positions, I've always been at a land-grant university, which is ideal for me because it allows me to do the two things I really enjoy. One is to do research, the other is to teach. I would not be nearly as happy if I was at a purely research position or a purely teaching position. By having both, I'm able to feed off my teaching and my research and feed off the research and it just goes back and forth. I earned my PhD in 1981 in genetics, working on the cytogenetics of cotton. I did two postdocs, one on a woody perennial with some interesting secondary products. The second were on some perennial landscape plants. My first faculty position was in 1985 at the University of Arizona. The point I'd like to make here is that all this is different than my training. I want to emphasize that our degrees do not tell us how much we know, but in fact, how well we can learn and at what level we can learn.
That's right.
For instance, I taught genetics for almost 40 years, the introductory genetics for the college. And, toward the end of that time, I would tell students that over half of what I'm teaching them wasn't learned, wasn't found, wasn't known when I finished my PhD. So at the university, I first worked on cucurbits, lettuce, and some ornamentals, and I earned tenure and promotion to associate professor. As funding sources changed, I added some work on biofuel and industrial crops, which again have some interesting secondary products. And I became a full professor. And later, I was elevated to the rank of university distinguished professor for my contributions both to my scholarship and to teaching. I've held various administrative positions besides faculty positions, but I always continued to do research and teach no matter what position I was holding. For instance, I was an interim assistant vice president for undergraduate education, a faculty associate in the Office of Career and Academic Services for the College of Agriculture and Life Sciences, where I was in charge of assessment of all curriculum. I was the associate director of the School of Plant Sciences, chair of interdisciplinary genetics committee, or the Committee on Genetics, and I was the chair of the Division of Horticultural and Crop Sciences.
Well, that's pretty impressive. Yeah.
Well, I've been at this a while.
Yeah. Well, excellent. Our next question is, what has horticulture meant to your life and to your career?
Well, I think the beauty of horticulture is that it's so broad, it's so diverse. I mean, just look at the over 50 professional interest groups we have in ASHS.
That's right.
We have everything from biochemistry to water and irrigation, everything from bioenergy crops to viticulture. And I'm a member of over 10 of these groups that overlap with my research, teaching, and other interests. For instance, I'm also interested in the history of horticulture and public gardens. You would be hard-pressed to find or to not find your interest covered in ASHS with all these. I enjoy both the diversity of the science, the diversity of the crops, and the diversity of people in horticulture.
Yeah.
I have to say that horticulture has allowed me to travel the world, and I've been able to meet interesting people with interests similar to mine all over the world. I've had a very nice career. I feel good about that. Now, as far as my life, my work in horticulture has actually changed about how I think about plants, how I think about them differently. they're not just food crops. They're not just fiber crops. Of course, I admit I'm off to go through a grocery store with. I'll go through the produce section and start lecturing to my family about the epistatic interactions of the genes and these green peppers and yellow peppers and red peppers, and I generally get eye rolls from them.
Say,
But I'm not only that, but I'm interested in the beauty they bring into our lives and the psychological and sociological effects. Just think of how many significant events in our lives are associated with flowers.
right.
And what's the importance of, and the importance to our mental health? Just think of green spaces. So, I got a whole different perspective of plants working in horticulture.
Mhm. For sure. Yeah, can't agree more with that. All right, next question is, what do you consider to be the most rewarding part of your career in horticulture?
Well, much of my research, because I live in the Southwest, is concerned with horticulture, agriculture, and arid and semi-arid areas of the world. Now, this is significant because over 40% of the land mass on Earth is arid or semi-arid. So I have crops growing all over the world. Of course, the United States, Mexico, South America, Africa, South Africa, North Africa, and Europe, uh, India, China, Australia. All these have pretty areas like this. So my work is applicable all over the world. Um, and I would like to, well, and I also should say that in these areas, the populations are generally large and poor.
Yeah.
And so I would like to think that I'm doing things to enhance the quality to help, and somehow in these areas to help the people enhance the quality of their life. Uh, and I have been given some awards from several countries for my contributions to their agriculture. But I have to say, I think my most rewarding part of my career is the success with my students.
Yeah.
My graduate students, many of whom are now leaders in agriculture across the US and the globe, and my undergraduate students who I've inspired some way by something I say or some new information I've given or just in class discussions. I think I'll be remembered more not for what I've done, but for what other people do that I've helped train.
Right. Making that lasting impact,
Right.
sharing that knowledge. That's right. Okay, our next question is, how long have you been a member of ASHS, and how has the society influenced your career?
Wow, I'm not sure how long. I think it's around 1982.
Okay.
And I guess I could have gone and looked it up, but it could have been 1983 or 1984. And it's not
Somewhere
real
in there.
that number of years doesn't seem very important, does it?
Yeah.
Any rate, I found ASHS members welcoming, and they were willing to answer my questions, and they were willing to work with me on various projects as I moved through my career. I started working with cucurbits, so the cucurbit and vegetable breeding groups were very essential in my success. I really didn't have any role models in my family or at the university when I was going through the system. Now we have mentors for new faculty and lots of mentoring programs. We didn't have any. And so I didn't really have any professional mentors. And several people in ASHS filled that niche for me, that they truly were my professional mentors and helped me, in my professional life. And most of these folks are still good friends today. So ASHS has been significant in my career.
Excellent. Can't agree more. Okay, our next question is, what advice can you offer to students or young professionals in horticulture?
First of all, would be able to get involved in ASHS or other related professional groups. These are great opportunities professionally and personally. They're opportunities to learn the latest results before they're published, to talk to the people doing the work, It's an opportunity to form partnerships and networking opportunities with others with similar interest. One of my most cited papers, the idea for the paper came between two sessions. We were sitting in the hallway and almost literally sort of scratched it out on napkins.
Yep.
And then we went back and to our different institutions. We weren't all the same place, and we worked this out. We we're going to do, and it turned out to be a significant piece of work. So I think there's no doubt that this is that's been important. I think that's important, and that's part of my advice. That's how you get involved. Also, it's amazing how often knowing someone at another university or an industry can be helpful to you in all sorts of unexpected ways.
Agreed.
How many people I, write papers with, write grants with, or just friends.
Yeah.
I mean, I have, friends here in ASHS from whatever year it was I started, and we're still doing this together. And I would recommend to students an excellent way to get to know people is by interacting in the ASHS professional interest groups.
Yes.
You should go to their meetings. These groups are very open, they're very friendly. Volunteer your ideas, volunteer that you're willing to do a leadership role. It's a good way to get started. I started as secretary and then chair of several of these professional interest. We called them working groups back then, but that put me on various committees. They found out, and then I was elected to several positions: vice president for the education division, and then president, and then chair of the board of ASHS. I think careers are interesting because I never imagined my life and career as it is today when I was a student or a young professional. I
Yeah.
would have never, ever thought of this. As a colleague of mine describes careers to her students, we're like water molecules in a big pipe of water. We're always moving in a direction, but we sort of bounce off this side, we bounce off that side. So it's not a straight line. It's not a straight line
I
ever.
like that.
I often describe careers to my students with a quote from John Lennon, one of the great musicians and philosophers of my generation. Life is what happens while you're busy making other plans.
True.
You just don't know what's going to happen. You can plan all you want, but life's going to happen around you. So then I think it's really, you're ultimately judged by how well you roll with the punches that life gives you, because these things do happen. And I think ultimately that's how we're going to be seen. Finally, I would suggest a life outside of work. You need a personal life and interest outside of your jobs. It is just a job, not your life. It is a job, not your life. You have to have a personal life and other interests, and it can help you in your career by personal contacts. But also there's some good quality research showing that the busier people are, the less creative they are.
Yeah.
Because you don't think as well. You just don't think as well. And so I often find solutions to problems I'm working on by doing something completely unrelated, like working out. And I'll rewrite a manuscript in my mind while I'm working. So I think all these, but I think there's professional things that you can, keep in mind, but also don't forget your personal life.
That's great advice. Yeah, wonderful advice for that. All right. And then our last question for you is, what excites you most about the future of the horticultural industry and profession?
Well, I think the future's bright. I mean, I think we've come a long ways. I think it enhances the quality of everyone's life, and I think it's expanding and changing. And because of that, it gives us quite a few options. People can move and change and make change. I think it's an exciting time to be a horticulturist.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Dennis Ray, for doing this HortLegends interview with us. You've definitely contributed to our industry. This has been a joy, and I've enjoyed listening to everything you had to say. Lots of great advice, sage wisdom. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you.